Hello, Cyclopeans. Welcome to Sci-Clops podcast number 9. My name is Dan.
And I'm Tom.
And this one's brought to you by H.P. Lovecraft's Beyond the Wall of Sleep. And you'll see the link to that story down at the bottom right below this podcast here. And without further ado, we are going to get right into Tom's comics.
Well, a little bit of fun thing about Disney owning Star Wars now is we're getting Marvel and Disney being owned by the same, Star Wars and Disney, is we're getting all these miniseries. Lando got one, Chewie got one, Leia got all these fun miniseries are coming out, and now Darth Maul is going to be getting a 5-issue miniseries, and it's going to be set pre-Phantom Menace. So this is all about his training under Sidious,
Cool,
and how he becomes this orphan child into the most ravaging, death-dealing Sith in forever.
Until he gets killed in his first
it's like he's this total monster, scary guy, and then Obi-Wan cuts him in half. Oops.
All that training for nothing.
Which, when he gets to the afterlife and all the other Sith are looking at him, it's like, dude, he flipped over you and cut you in half. You had 20 seconds.
I know. Now, really quick, I'm going to interrupt you early on this one. Are we going to link into the canon from
Yes,
Clone
they
Wars?
said this is going to be a mix of the film canon and Clone Wars canon.
Because that Clone Wars really...
Because Clone Wars introduced a lot of Maul's backstory with the Night Sisters and his mother and his brother. Yeah. So they're going to be melding the two. It's going to be the film canon mixed with the Clone Wars canon.
And I really like what they did there. I thought they really...
It was cool. It made
really
Darth Maul from being this silent, mysterious, one-note character to having a fleshed-out history.
What do you listeners think? Do you think did he got chumped really bad?
Oh, he totally got chumped in the movie.
Yeah, I think
but in Clone Wars, he came back, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Did you like if you saw Clone Wars on there, let us know what you thought of the Clone Wars thing, because we really thought it was great.
And he's in Rebels, too.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you short.
Oh, no, it's fine, but I'm glad, because when they do Darth Maul stuff, usually tends to either be really cool or really silly.
Yeah.
They did one miniseries where a group of Sith acolytes bring Maul back from the dead to fight Vader because they think that Vader used to be a Jedi, so he can't be the best Sith ever. And it's like,
I don't know about that.
I really think the logic holds there, but whatever. Lord knows Vader killed way more Jedi than Darth Maul ever did. Anyway, so this is cool. It's going to be written by Cullen Bunn and drawn by Luke Ross. And Cullen Bunn has done some of he's doing Conan right now, which we're reading.
Seems like we keep bumping into
that. Cullen Bunn is everywhere. Yeah. I don't know how he sleeps, considering he's writing 8 different series.
They got to be punching these things out at such a high rate of speed.
Well, you figure stuff like Conan, he can go at his own pace. But Marvel, I feel like Marvel went out, So this is fun. I'll be definitely looking forward to this. I don't think they have a release date for it yet, because this was literally just announced today.
Okay.
So I doubt that they're going to have, coming out in X and such. But I'm very excited. And so getting into comic review stuff, I'm backlogged here. So that some of these might be a week or two old.
That's good. That's a first world problem.
Yeah.
I've got too many comics that I can't talk about.
One of my favorites is finally back after its hiatus, and it's Monstress by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takada.
Yeah, we were covering that way back.
Way back, yeah. And I think visually this thing is still one of the most gorgeous comics out there, and it's got a really interesting story. It's this huge, weird mix of steampunk and fantasy, and there's a lot of Lovecraft in here with old one monsters.
So I'm gonna like it.
Oh yeah. She the main character is possessed by an old one, and she's its gateway into the world. She's trying to figure out how to get rid of it, and go back to being just her.
Do we know who it was? Do we want to give it away if we know?
Oh, it's not an actual H.P. Lovecraft. It's an original creation. Okay, yeah. But it's very similar in that it's this giant, old god eating
with tentacles.
Yeah, tentacles. And
dangerous calamari.
So the first arc is wrapped up, and which was really mainly took place in a single city. Cool. It's still a gorgeous fantasy locale, but it was all one city. Now we're getting out into the world and seeing all this expanded stuff, and she's on a quest to find where this thing came from and how she can excise it from her and get back to being just a regular person again. My only real criticism is that some of the character designs for the witches, who are the villains so far of the story, they look very similar, so it's hard to juggle who's who.
I think you said that before.
Yeah, but that's really my only real criticism, because the artwork is stunning and the characters are very interesting, and it's a great comic, and I highly recommend it to anyone.
Just the cover alone is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's like the Great Wave of Kanagawa painting almost, mixed with the evil hands coming out of it. It's really cool. Okay, on to the DC world. This week we've got Wonder Woman number 8, and they've been doing a weird thing with Wonder Woman where odd number issues take place in the present, and even number issues are her origin story, which I don't mind. I thought it was weird at first, but it doesn't bother me so much anymore. And so this is an even numbered issue, so we learn more about her history and backstory, but this issue is actually about Dr. Barbara Ann Minerva, who fans may recognize, who eventually becomes the Cheetah. Okay. And this is all about her upbringing and how she becomes a professor obsessed with finding the Amazons, and just going through all of her life leading up to eventually meeting Wonder Woman. Okay. So there's not a ton of action in this one because she's just a regular archaeologist, but it is a fun little preview into who Cheetah is and how she becomes the way she is and why she does have a strong connection with Wonder Woman in the present. Mm. So a bit of a cool down in terms of action stuff, but still a fun, solid issue to go through. And I think next week will be interesting because we get back to the present storyline, which is Barbara as the Cheetah now, helping Wonder Woman try to find Themyscira. So that'll be a lot of fun.
You wonder if we'll see some Cheetah later on down the road in the
film. Yeah, in the films it'll be an interesting one because Cheetah's one of those things where it's like, can you adapt it into live action without it just being hokey? Yeah. But we'll see what they do. I mean,
we'll see how this first one goes. And
Captain Cold is on Flash and Legends of Tomorrow, and he didn't come off as hokey.
Yeah, and you hear something like Captain Cold too, you think Captain Cold, but he's pretty cool.
Awesome. Heatwave, Captain Cold, like all these weird side characters are now getting their
like we said, digging down into the bench.
They just did the Justice Society of America, the 1940s heroes and everything. Yeah. And so now we go to Marvel, and I got 2 from Marvel. The first one is Deadpool issue 20. And this current run of Deadpool has done a great job of, obviously it's Deadpool, so it's just ridiculously irreverent and mostly slapstick comedy involving Deadpool's inability to die. But there's moments where Deadpool, underneath his insanity, really is a nice person. And this issue opens up with him finding somebody about to jump off a building. And him, in his own awful way, trying to convince them to not jump. And then it just... He convinces her to give him 1 day to convince her that life is worth living. So he takes her along on a ride along of him and all his mercenary jobs, and it's just this awful... And it's played for comedy for the most part.
That should make anybody want to kill themselves.
Right, yeah, you think you get to the end of this, and how's this girl not going to throw herself off a building?
I can't stand this place.
But it actually ends on a very somber note. Right. And it's Deadpool really genuinely, in his awful way, trying to help this girl. And it's fun to see that Deadpool really does have more to him than just being this zany, rambunctious, I'm going to shoot everything in the face and make a bad joke about the internet.
What an interesting storyline.
And yeah, it's fun. It's definitely a one-issue thing. It's not like this is a new arc, but it was a great placeholder while they set up a new story arc. So that was a lot of fun. And then Daredevil issue 12. And this, I think, is becoming a Marvel thing where the Inhumans have to show up in every single comic. Oh, okay. And
doesn't sound like you're liking that.
I like the Inhumans a lot. I love their solo series. And it's just like every series has the Inhumans in it. And partly that's to blame because Civil War 2 is happening and the Inhumans are a huge part of that. Right. But I get that they kind of want the Inhumans to be like their next big franchise, and maybe they do want an Inhumans movie at some point.
You think that's why this is all coming in?
But they're like everywhere. I can't read I think the only comic I'm reading right now they haven't showed up in is Punisher. All right. And that's because he rarely does superhero stuff anyway. But it was an interesting issue. In Daredevil, there's this new villain who's killing dozens of people and using their blood to create paintings, and the papers are calling him Vincent Van Gogh. Yeah. But the weird thing is he's only killing Inhumans and using their blood. So obviously the Inhumans step in because someone's attacking their citizens, and it's Daredevil trying to negotiate with Medusa to let him in on the investigation. And I do like this, even though, like I said, the Inhumans are showing up everywhere. I like this because it's a new villain. It's not like Owl's back from Stryker's Island to seek revenge on Daredevil for the umpteenth time. This is a brand new villain who we've never seen before, and it's really creepy.
Well, it's not so bad then. Then they're going into the bench on the Inhumans now, deep into the bench there. So.
Yeah. Well, no, the villain, we don't know if he's Inhuman or not.
Oh, I thought
all we know is he's killing him.
It was another Inhuman.
No, all we know is he's killing him.
Okay.
But the costume is very creepy and unsettling. He's just a wackadoo, and it's fun to watch a new villain get introduced into a fold and hopefully not be a one-off.
What's the chance this might be an Inhuman, though?
It could be. That could explain how he's killing them, because, Inhumans have superpowers, so one would think you'd have to at least have some way of dealing with that. So, but for all we know, that he's just maybe a lunatic who gets the jump on him. But I do like that there's a new villain. The art style is still really cool, and the new villain really plays into the new art style of Daredevil. It looks like he's got crying blood, and it's just really creepy, and he's got this weird mask. And I also like that this run of Daredevil, for anyone who hasn't been reading it, Daredevil has a sidekick now, Blind Spot.
Okay. And
Blind Spot is a Chinese immigrant who protects Chinatown and, keeps his people safe, and Daredevil's convinced him to try to become a legitimate superhero. So we're getting a new character introduced and a little bit more of that diversity, because New York City's got everybody from everywhere all in it. And so Daredevil's got a new sidekick who's actually a pretty interesting character on his own. And maybe one day down the road, Blind Spot will get his own series. But I think...
Or a movie. The rate things are going.
That's all, yeah. But that's all I got for my comic news for today.
I got a quick comic for you. I covered Voracious by Marcus Naso and Jason Muir. And it's what I call number 5, because I've read the first 4. And this is kind of like number 1, 2. In other words, it's like the first one of the they put all 5 together kind of thing. But you can look
trade
it up.
Back.
Yeah, we'll have a link up.
And trade hit break.
Yeah. And it's fantastic. I can't rave enough about it. Marcus and Jason have done just an amazing job with this. It's that comic where we combine cooking and time travel and dinosaurs.
Which, how can you go wrong?
Yeah, and how can you go wrong? And it really, if you had just thrown that on the table and I looked at it, I was okay, this is going to be interesting. But then they really do a great story with it. It's a story that keeps you reading, and the art is amazing. There's a couple panels in this new issue that are so good, and I was like, I want to let everybody know I do know Marcus, and I'm not just giving this a rave review because I know Marcus, but because I really do like the comic. There was a couple panels, and I didn't know Jason, and Jason had drawn these, and I was like, this is absolutely fantastic. These little these panels are so good. I'd like to get them blown up into a poster size, great big poster for the Geek office down here.
We're running out of space with the prints we have.
Yeah, I know. We'll be talking about that shortly. And but I just wanted to rave and rant about this comic. It's really good. It's gone into the future end of the comic. So it's an interesting comic where it takes place in the past, present, and future. So we're jumping all over the place in time. And there's a reason, because it's linked up. The guys in the present are doing something to the past, which affects the future. And so everybody's jumping all over the place trying to put this down. And of course, I don't want to give too much away, but we're going to take we took, of course, a really hard left turn in the end of number 4, which was a surprise. I didn't see that coming, and it was a really cool hard left turn. And so number 5 starts with that, where we jump into the future and find out what's been going on because of the past. So without further ado, I don't want to beat this up too much with too many clues and not telling you too much, but just know it's a good comic. Take a look at the link we've got, or click on it, and I think you'll really enjoy it. That's my one comic for the week. I hadn't gotten to too much else because I was busy on some other stuff, which you'll hear about later. You've got some comic news coming, right?
No, not any comic news. That was Darth Maul thing. But I got
now?
TV and movies.
TV and movies.
We'll jump to TV. We'll start with. I can't believe it, but I really have been enjoying Arrow Season 5. Mm-hmm. Now we've gotten out of cautious optimism to I actually enjoy the season.
Yeah, good. Back on.
And now that they wrapped up the Tobias Church storyline, Prometheus, the main villain of Season 5, is coming into play. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like that Arrow has been doing this so Flash. There's kind of 2 villains per season, but it's not like Spider-Man 3 where there's like 8 villains all at once and Peter's juggling them, so none of the villains really matter. Mm-hmm. They're kind of like a setup villain for the main plot, and then there's the big bad working behind the scenes. And so for Arrow, that is Prometheus. We've seen Prometheus since the premiere, but the Arrow hasn't found out about him until this episode. And there's still a lot of shakiness on who Prometheus could be behind the mask. I'm still holding out for Tommy Merlin, but I don't think it'll be Tommy Merlin.
Yeah, you were calling that last week. You think?
Yeah, I hope.
That now? Okay.
I doubt it,
it's
but
okay.
I hope. But it's interesting because there's been a lot of callbacks to Arrow Season 1. Prometheus apparently knows who Oliver really is. And you remember the list Oliver has in Season 1?
Yeah.
He has the list.
Could it be anybody from the island?
That's the thing. Is it somebody he was on Lian? Well,
Who
really,
was on the island that
he killed everybody in Lian Yu with
I'm trying
him.
to think who was on the
Deathstroke
island.
is still in prison. Who knows who he is?
Yeah.
But yeah, he actually had the book of names that Oliver had, and he was killing people off,
Right.
because his dad had them all as a list of, conspirators. Yep. So Oliver's new team is like horrified that Oliver was at one point just murdering people off a hit list, like a sociopath. And they're really not sure if they want to be on a team with a guy who used to have a murder list.
And that was a theme in season 1, if I remember, 1 or 2, where somebody discovered the theme. Who was it? Oh dear, it was the one of the guys in there had discovered
Diggle?
the list. Diggle, yeah. Diggles, and he had discovered the list and really flipped out. I was like, "Wow, you've got this." If I remember correctly,
yeah.
I haven't seen the.
I haven't seen season 1 or 2 but it's probably Diggle.
Everybody who finds that list was like, "Oh."
Oh yeah, because he's got a book full of people to kill.
It's a Death Note.
Yeah, basically.
If you guys are fans of Death Note, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Now there's this whole thing of. Is it this is just a new guy who's discovered Oliver's past, or is this somebody who's known him all along? Because if it's somebody who's known him all along, the list is pretty short. It's Tommy Merlin, or it's Slade, and they do a fake out. They do a fake out at the end of the episode on who Prometheus could be.
Okay.
And I say fake out because there's absolutely no way it's really this guy. The new character they've introduced, Adrian Chase, might as well have a neon sign over his head saying "I'm Prometheus." So I actually kind of think that's a fake out too. I think we've got 2 red herrings as to who Prometheus is.
Yep.
Because one, it just doesn't make any sense. And Adrian Chase, like I said, he might as well have a neon sign over his head saying, "I'm the bad guy."
And they generally don't do that.
And yeah, Arrow's done a few, obvious reveals before, but this one feels like it's so obvious it has to be a fake out. So I maintain that Prometheus is somebody we either haven't met yet, or it's somebody from Oliver's past who we're surprised at. And like I said, hopefully Tommy Merlin, but I doubt it. Legends of Tomorrow is steadily becoming, maybe even more so than Flash, my favorite DC TV show right now, because their newest episode, Consequences, they go back to the 80s, and it's like straight out of Miami Vice. Awesome. Like everybody's got the bad, suits and everything, and it's just hilarious.
Spiky hair.
Yeah, they really know how to do the time stuff.
Thin colored ties and everything.
And now we've got Damien Dark is back after his run on season 4 of Arrow, and season 4 of Arrow was just bad in a lot of ways. Damien Dark was really one of the high points of season 4. The main villain was great. Neil McDonough was fantastic, and it's great to see him get another crack at it in a show that really kind of isn't meant to be taken as serious as Arrow. Yeah. So they can go really, because it's a dude who's on fire, flies around shooting fireballs, and then, it's meant to be more over the top, larger than life. So Damien Dark fits much more in with this than he did with Arrow. And so somebody in the 80s screws with the timeline. They don't know who it is yet, but we know it's the Reverse Flash. So basically they mess with the Reagan administration and the pact they come up with the Soviets to disarm a little bit with the nuclear armaments. So they all go back to the 80s, and there's predictably hilarious 80s fashion and bad 80s music, and Heatwave at one point turns on the radio during a stakeout, and some awful song comes on. He just smashes it and goes, "I hate the 80s."
The 80s weren't that bad. I'm going to defend the 80s. They were pretty good.
No, I'm just saying, but it's a lot of fun.
Just getting beaten up by the 60s crowd all the time.
Again, Heatwave, surprisingly, gets the most character growth, because ever since the loss of Captain Cold in Season 1, Heatwave's been trying to find his footing. He always had a partner, somebody he knew had his back, and he cares about the rest of the team, and he wants to work with them, but it's not the same as having somebody you've known with since you were teenagers be your buddy. So we really get to see this week him struggling with trying to find his place on the team, and so is Ray Palmer, the Atom, after the loss of his suit 2 episodes ago. Now, I think the loss of his over-the-top Iron Man suit is going to lead to him creating the much more comic-based, almost spandex kind of suit where he can just shrink in and out and not have this giant mech suit that looks like a ripoff of Iron Man. But it's really been a great show in terms of the action's great, the characters are genuinely likable, and we're watching them grow. It's not like they're just stuck in the same holding pattern of someone's the comic relief, somebody's the serious, broody guy.
Villain of the week.
Yeah. And it's always fun because for the time travel aspect of it. The 80s, they did Civil War, feudal Japan. They're really going all over the place with this season so far. The one criticism I have of the season so far is Rip Hunter, their captain, disappears in the season 2 premiere. And they've kind of hinted at, we'll try to find him, but they really haven't done too much in the way of trying to find him.
They kind of barbed him?
They just
You don't know that. Yeah, in Stranger Things, they kind of dump Barb in the Upside Down, and they kind of see her, but they don't really do much about it, and then she's just gone, and they just kind of barb her, you know?
Yeah. So, yeah, he's disappeared, and I mean, I get it. It's not like they're going around fixing time aberrations. Yep. It's not like they're just sitting on their butts like, all right, we'll wait for something. They're busy, but still, it feels like somebody at some point should say, shouldn't we try to find Rip? And
should we try to rescue this poor guy?
Yeah, so that's really my only criticism of Legends of Tomorrow so far. And now on to Flash. We're still in the early points of season 3. And everything looks like it's pointing that Wally West will be developing his Kid Flash powers. Because the villain of this first section, Alchemy, has for some reason, we still don't know why, been giving people who had powers in Flashpoint their powers back. Mm-hmm. And giving them not only their powers, but their memories of Flashpoint back too. So Wally, it looks like, is having these hallucinations of being the Kid Flash, and Alchemy is trying to get to Wally. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're thinking about this, it doesn't seem like a good idea to create a second Flash, right? If you're the bad guy. Why would you want another guy who's almost unstoppable as a hero?
Yeah.
So Alchemy's got to have something at play here besides just giving Wally his powers back for the sake of giving Wally's powers back. And it's really another great mystery. Arrow's doing a great mystery on who he is, and Flash has got a great mystery on who Alchemy is and why he's doing this. And
which was what Flash did in season 1, when you kind of knew
Reverse Flash, yeah.
Reverse Flash, you kind of had an impression it was. Then you did find out it was him, but you were kind of like, well, why?
Maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Yeah, even though he kept showing up back in his secret room with a suit, you were like, is this really him doing this, or what's going on?
Is he really even a bad guy? And then but yeah, that's very much the same thing. Alchemy is like, okay, he's clearly doing bad things, but but why? What's his
Pardon me.
And so I think that this is a nice little mystery storyline. And now Flash, just like I said, like Arrow, has also a second villain. They'll be coming in the later half of the season. Okay. I think it's pronounced Salvatore, who's, I'm not sure if he's another evil speedster or not. But this Alchemy storyline, I think, has been really good. The ramifications of Barry creating Flashpoint are still being felt, even though we're 6 episodes deep. So even though the Flashpoint got undone like 1 or 2 episodes in, really, it's still reverberating throughout the season. It's not like, oh, wasn't that fun? That was only 2 episodes.
Yeah, so in short, the show's doing good still. And I just want to add, I'm behind you. I'm not going to go into my area because we've already covered it in the past, but I'm on season 2, about episode 4 or so, and I'm loving it. I'm like, as silly as this show is, and we kind of joke about it a little bit. It is a little silly, but it's fun. It's a great show, and I find, at the end of the day, I can't wait to see the Flash again, and it's just because they're doing something right there with this show. And it's a show that delivers. The story's good, and like we had, like the whodunit, like we were saying, they'll hand you a superhero, and you kind of know most of it, but you're asking, it's like when we had the reverse Flash, we knew kind of he was a reverse Flash, but we didn't know why he was doing it, and it's a sign of good writing, in my opinion, when you can hand the viewer a great deal of the story, and they're still asking questions. So I'm really liking the Flash. Both of us are giving the Flash thumbs up here, and I'm still liking Arrow too, which I'm starting to get back into again. So I didn't mean to cut you short there.
No, that's fine. That's all I got for TV. There's been some movie news, which some of it's good, some of it makes me scratch my head. Apparently, X-Men is setting to reset, or...
Yeah, I saw that today.
Which, they're not a full-on reboot, so it's not like they're going to say, oh, none of the continuity happened. But I guess they might want to change where the future of the franchise is going. Yeah. And Bryan Singer, who directed X-Men's 1, 2... Days of Future Past and Apocalypse, is not going to be doing the next X-Men film, which we already knew. He said he was going to step away. But I can understand kind of why Fox might want to shuffle things up a little bit, because Apocalypse, I enjoyed it. It wasn't as critically well received as Days of Future Past, and it also didn't do as much box office as Days of Future Past. I think Days of Future Past made something like $750 million, and Apocalypse only made about $550. Right. So, which may sound like, oh, it made $550 million, but it's a humongous budget for this thing.
For these kind of movies.
For X-Men, it's huge.
Is not.
And so it clearly didn't tank, but it didn't do as well as they'd hoped. So I can understand them wanting to obviously creatively shift with Bryan Singer stepping away. He's done 4 out of the 9 movies. So, but I don't really think there's really a need to reset anything. You've got a nice new cast with James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender. You just introduced Ty Sheridan as Sci-Clops, Sophie Turner as Jean Grey. Yeah. I thought the new cast in Apocalypse was fantastic as the younger versions of the established characters. So I don't really see the need to, like, I hope to God they don't recast anybody, because I think they finally got the casting right for X-Men.
I was scratching my head on that this morning because I saw some news and I put it up on the interwebs news today, news of the day, and they were like, well, the way that the link I had was saying is Fox is kind of like reached an end with this thing, so they'll just shake it up and go back and reboot the whole thing. And I think, oh, I don't know, because it seemed like one of my complaints with Superman is it seemed like how many Supermans have we had? And I was like, let's just develop Superman instead of going back to the beginning and doing it again. Oh, let's go back to in Batman. A little bit of a complaint here, where they kept going back to the beginning and doing it again. And let's just take one Batman franchise and just develop it.
Well, now we can. Now that we have the DC Extended Universe.
Well, it's like
the same thing.
What's his name? Affleck's going to do it. And that's what's exciting about Affleck. You love him or hate him. I'm not getting into a battle here, but over Affleck doing Batman or anything. But at least he's going to take it. Let's just keep going with this thing instead of going back to the beginning and talking about Batman's roots, which everybody knows and we've seen.
I'm sorry. At this point, the only people who don't know Batman's origin story are like 3-year-olds.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're basically born and you're given your first Batman comic and you set out in life, and that's the way it is. But I'm with you on this X-Men reboot. We're both scratching our heads.
The rumor too is the next film was going to be the Dark Phoenix storyline again.
Yeah, which
is great because they really screwed the pooch on that one in X-Men 3.
Oh, don't even get me started. That was
Dark Phoenix is supposed to be this awesome, interstellar, cosmic, crazy. They don't even have to do interstellar.
All the way to the edge of the universe. Yeah.
And they made her sad and angry, and she kills Professor X.
And it looked like she knocked off.
And Magneto was giving her orders, and
just a mess.
And you're like, Dark Phoenix does not take orders from anybody.
Yeah, she was like Magneto's little puppet there.
Yeah,
I was like, come on, it's. I hope let's just not even talk about that movie because that's about as bad as Aliens 4. Alien 4 with the.
I would rather watch Aliens 4.
Oh Lord.
Anyway,
I go into there. So, anybody else out there hate that movie as much as we do, or no? But
more Marvel news. Michael Keaton has finally been confirmed as playing the Vulture in Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Yep.
So he's back to his superhero roots, except this time he's going to be the bad guy. And it's funny because he actually kind of looks like the Vulture.
Not the best thing.
No, he's not. Okay, the Vulture is hideously old, 80-something in the comics. Michael Keaton doesn't look that bad.
No.
But he's balding like the Vulture is, and I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, he'll do a good Vulture.
I think it's, again, the Vulture is being the villain in a Spider-Man movie. What? Yeah, it's great.
We're bringing a classic villain back.
We're developing Spider-Man. Classic. I grew up on Spider-Man the animated series, so I know the Vulture from those silly. He's got the giant green costume. Oh yeah. And you're like, how does nobody just shoot this guy in the head?
I love the Vulture.
I think Michael Keaton's a fantastic actor.
Yeah.
And I think having him play Vulture is a fantastic choice. I'm a little worried because apparently Spider-Man: Homecoming might feature multiple villains. And anytime I hear multiple villains and Spider-Man in the same sentence, I have horrible nightmares about Spider-Man 3. Because they did Venom, Sandman, and Harry Osborn as the new Green Goblin all in the same movie. And none of them felt any... They never packed a punch, because you're like, okay, Harry starts the movie as a villain, and then Sandman shows up, and then Sandman kind of goes away, and Venom shows up. Oh, but Sandman's back at the end, and... I guess Sandman really isn't that bad a guy after all, and he just leaves, and Venom died. Yeah. Oh. And you're like, why were there this many villains in a movie?
Yeah.
About a single hero. So I'm fine with maybe introducing another villain for Spider-Man to fight, but let's have the Vulture just get the spotlight as far as most of the movie goes.
It seems like there seems to be a threshold you can't pass with the number of characters going into a movie. Now, some people will debate that, but if you think about how good Deadpool was, and I think one of the reasons that Deadpool was so
6
hot
characters.
Is you had Deadpool, you had his nemesis there, what you want to call it, nemesis or whatever, and then you had 2 X-Men brought in. Carefully.
Then you had the girlfriend, his buddy,
the
villain's henchman.
Yeah, and
that's
you were really focused. I mean, you didn't bring in too many superheroes. You just had the 2 X-Men, the bad guys, the girlfriend, which you had to have to develop the story, and Deadpool. And okay, we're cool now. We've got a handful of characters. Everything works. We're not going down into 10 and 12 and 15 and 26 characters. So the audience is like holding their head in their hands, going, "My God, who's going to come in next? I don't know what's going on here." So you're right. What do you guys think about that? Do you think there's a point we just have too many characters in these things? Or you like seeing them dump them in there?
Yeah.
So
I think the later X-Men films, not 2 or not 3 especially, but they did a good job of introducing characters that would be important in the future in previous movies, but only giving them a teeny bit of screen time,
right?
Just so it would plant the seed in your head, like this guy will be important later. And I think that's what you got to do with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not, like I said, if you want to introduce who the next villain will be, maybe. Like give them a cameo or a minor role, fine.
Post credits.
But yeah, let's that's why Marvel does those movies now.
Post credits.
Or those scenes now. Is I think we can do that without just shoehorning in a whole mess of characters and then saying, I don't get it. Why didn't people like anybody? Yeah. Because nobody had any time to develop a character.
Yeah, you got to develop. It's good to develop. Can I quick back up just a little bit here? I know we're going on the movies. I didn't want to have you go all the way moving that up to jump back to TV. I just want to mention really quick. We're covering TV a minute ago, and I just finished. We're going to take a quick left turn here. I just finished Death Note and all the series, and Death Note it remains fantastic. There's a reason why everybody's jumping up and down and clapping their hands about this thing. I don't know how the movie is going to affect this. I have not seen any of the live action Death Note or whatever it's called, the movie Death Note, but the series is really, really good. I highly recommend it, and it's basically a giant chess game soap opera with this thing going. I hate to use the word soap opera because that makes it kind of cheesy sounding.
Soap opera,
but it's you've got 2 or 3 main characters and a couple supporting characters, and it's basically about these 2 characters going back and forth at each other this whole time, and it's for anime, incredible. And I'm not saying anything bad about anime. I just didn't know I was going to like anime like this. And coming off One Punch Man, which of course you heard me rave about before, some episodes back, and now I've just finished Death Note, and I'm getting ready to jump into. I've been told to go to Attack on Titan. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure what I'm going to go to next. I'm trying to pick something, but I'll let you guys know. If anybody has any suggestions, feel free to put it in the comments. I've had a few suggestions here.
Actually, it's funny you bring up anime. I forgot about this, but I have news too. Dragon Ball Super, which is the continuation after Dragon Ball Z, has finally gotten an English dub through Funimation.
Ah, cool.
It's November 4th, they announced it, and I believe now it's officially streaming on the Funimation streaming service.
Okay.
Which I'm not sure if you have to pay for that, but that's just another service I'm gonna have to subscribe for. So I'll wait. I'll wait for the Blu-ray release. But Dragon Ball Super, from what I've heard, like it recaps the first 2 new movies they did, and then moves off into its own storyline, which is great because I own all 9 seasons of Dragon Ball Z.
You love your Dragon Ball, that's for sure. Yeah, Tom's all about Dragon Ball fans.
So for me, I'm very excited to hear we're getting a proper English dub of this, and I cannot wait. And they said that they're gonna have a bunch of new toys hitting America in 2017. And my wallet's already crying.
Your wallet's already crying. So is your room, from what I hear.
Yeah.
From what I hear, your room is covered in toys.
But I'm very excited about this, and I think it's about time Dragon Ball Super made it over to us North American fans. It's about time.
Well, they're coming in. They're coming in slowly, and I mean, and wasn't Funimation? Correct me if I'm wrong here. Did Funimation and Crunchyroll get together?
Yes.
Okay, so Crunchyroll's here, and it looks like
because I believe before Funimation had their own streaming service, they worked with Crunchyroll.
Yeah, because Crunchyroll the short of the story is that animation is starting to make a major headway into the U.S. now. And so
also I think with Dragon Ball Super, they're only 65 episodes in,
right?
Which I mean that sounds like a lot, 65 of them, but they're half an hour.
Yeah.
Anime episodes.
Yeah.
So you really collect that into a DVD collection, you could probably do that in 2 or 3.
And you know what? You know what's odd? What may have really helped this, it may help down the road a little bit, is Pokemon Go. The explosion of Pokemon Go, where you've got this type of, this Japanese thing coming in and it's exploding all over the place, and people are going, now it has died off a bit, but still, now it's in everyone's heads.
Yep.
It's a household word. And so you might see a lot more inclination to do stuff like Funimation and Crunchyroll and things like that. I just remember what I was told to watch, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So I don't know anything about it.
I don't even remember that
Bizarre
one.
Adventure. It's supposed to be told by somebody saying, make sure you see JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So we'll see if I can get to that in the next week or 2. So anyway, jumping back over to Tom here.
Oh, okay. I got 2 more little bits of movie news. Kong Skull Island, the reboot of King Kong. They just did the first big reveal of what Kong looks like, and he looks exactly like you'd think he would.
King Kong.
He's a giant ape. I don't know why there was this, with Godzilla, there was this big dramatic, like, what's Godzilla going to look like? Because there's some room for interpretation with Godzilla.
Yeah, you can switch him around a little bit.
A little bit. So I enjoyed the new look for Godzilla. But with Kong, I really wasn't expecting anything other than a gigantic ape. Yeah, why would he look like anything other than a gigantic ape?
I'm not going to be... I'm not that excited about this.
I think like the casting is good, and the fact that we know for a fact it exists in the same universe as Godzilla.
Oh, yeah.
And they've said at some point we are doing a Godzilla versus King Kong movie.
If Kong does well.
Yeah.
But that last one was kind of...
the last one was not... Peter Jackson needs to stop doing 3-hour epics. King Kong does not need to be a 3-hour movie.
So you got 3 of them. You got the 20 or 30 version.
Yeah, the original.
The 78.
Yeah.
And then you've got the
2005.
2005 was it?
Was Peter Jackson.
It was I don't know. I don't remember very much memorable.
I remember he fought a T-Rex, and that was about it.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I remember the footprint scene, which was kind of funny when they fell in the footprint. But I was like, okay.
So I mean, yes, he looks good. The CGI is fantastic, but it's just a big giant ape, like everybody thought King Kong was going to be. So I don't know what everyone was like. King Kong reveal. I'm like, he's gonna be a big ape,
big fuzzy ape.
Like he is, and he was. It looks really good, but I mean, he's a big ape, so okay. But I'll definitely go see it when it comes out. I'm looking forward to it. But
hopefully they got a good story behind it, you know.
Yeah. And then the last bit of news, and this one is my favorite. Pacific Rim 2 has finally started filming.
Monsters versus giant robots.
I cannot stress enough how pumped I am about this.
This is going to be hot.
Pacific Rim was my favorite movie of 2013. Yeah. There are two things I love. Giant monsters and giant robots. Yep. Pacific Rim was giant monsters versus giant robots. Yep. So how could I not love it so much? It was literally Pacific Rim was a live-action anime movie done to perfection. Yeah. It was perfect. Not a thing I would have changed.
Yep. And what's the giant robot film coming out? One of the major... Gosh, I apologize. I'm having a mind blank. One of the major films coming out. I want to say, oh dear, we're gonna think of it here. I interrupted him, but I'll try to think of it as fast as I can.
This one is entitled Pacific Rim Maelstrom.
Okay.
Love the title. I'm a little bummed that Charlie Hunnam isn't gonna be back as the main character. I don't think any of the characters are returning. Actually, maybe I'm wrong on that. But Charlie Hunnam's work schedule with all the delays that got put into production for Pacific Rim 2, he's not gonna be in it. But John Boyega, who played Finn in Star Wars, is going to be playing Idris Elba's son.
Yep.
And I think that's a fantastic casting choice. That's a little weird because he never mentions having a son in the movie, but maybe he didn't know he had a son. I don't know. So we'll see. I think this will be really cool because if I remember correctly, Stephen DeKnight is directing it. And he's done a lot of my favorite TV series. He did Spartacus. He did Daredevil Season 1. I'm very excited. I think this is his feature film debut, is directing Pacific Rim 2, so this will be really cool. I think we've got a fantastic cast. Guillermo del Toro, I believe, is still producing this. I know he's writing it. So I think this is all the recipes of another success for Pacific Rim. Yeah, and I can't wait.
The shooting's begun. We had covered this about a week ago, and it's pretty cool. And we're both pretty excited about this. Because Tom, I wasn't so much into Pacific Rim until Tom came in just jumping up and down about it. And now that I see... I've gotten a little bit more in the anime thing. I've gotten a little bit more of the robots and monsters, and I really like it. So it's almost like giant robots fighting the old gods
basically,
out of the ocean, you know.
Except they're aliens.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. Now I'm kind of getting into it more and more. So that's a good thing. And again, I apologize. I still can't remember the name of the other movie, so we're just gonna let that drop for now.
That's all right.
If I find it, I'll let you know.
Well, it's funny. I have a story about that later for when you talk about your trip to Rhode Island.
Awesome.
So that's all I got for movies, but I do have some stuff for video games.
Awesome.
It is now November 14th, so 4 days from now is Pokemon Sun and Moon for the Nintendo 3DS.
Boy, is that going to be hot.
And I am desperately containing myself because I will lose my mind screaming about how awesome Pokemon is.
Yeah. The hype up to this.
The hype has been insane.
Unbelievable.
And I really can't wait. I think Nintendo always delivers for the most part when it comes to Pokemon games. But I can understand some people's criticism where they say it's the same game every year. It's just new Pokemon and maybe a new type of battle, but really it doesn't change much. Mm-hmm. And that is a criticism that is legitimate and valid. They don't change too much of the formula because the formula works. But this year, it looks like they've been shaking things up more than they have been in previous years. One of the big complaints about Pokemon was always the HM moves, which you need to like fly and surf, and all these moves you needed to get from place to place to place. And once a Pokemon learned them, they were undeletable. You couldn't replace them unless you went to a very specific point in the game and did a specific thing. And it was just frustrating to have to waste a move slot on something you needed. But this year, it looks like with the addition of Pokemon Transport, where you can just go to a city and they'll have a Pokemon that'll either take you by surf or fly or whatever.
Cool.
It looks like they've eliminated the need for HMs, so that's actually a really nice thing, and that means all four slots for moves can be used for whatever you want. They've also switched up the gym structure, and they've introduced new things like Ultra Beasts, and they've really, looks like this time, not gone back to the drawing board and redone everything, but it really looks like this year they went out of their way to make a game that doesn't just feel like, here's the same thing you played before with new Pokemon in it.
So they're trying to keep one of the hottest games.
They're trying to keep it fresh and relevant and not become like this stale thing that, you play every year and it's like, okay, it didn't change much. So I'm very excited about that. And in other Nintendo news, it looks like the price for the Nintendo Switch may have leaked. And if the report is to be believed, it looks like the Nintendo Switch will reportedly be selling for $329.99. And I heard that, and I was very happy, because Nintendo, when they do their consoles, is generally on the cheaper end than Sony or Microsoft. $329.99 is not cheap, but when you compare it to $499 for the Xbox or PlayStation, that's $170 you're saving.
What's the NES? Do we know what's that going?
Oh, the retro NES I believe was $60.
But you can't even touch
that
right
thing.
Now.
Yeah, it's like now you're probably gonna find it on eBay for like $200 or.
Well, it's worse than that because my friends were just. I want to tell you that we got a little. I got a little group I'm in with my text messages, and they've been texting back and forth, and apparently it's now in the news too. The NES, you can't touch it. You can't even. It's the hottest thing out, and it's
the weird thing is
Christmas gift of the year.
I get why it's cool. It literally is a reproduction of the NES.
But what the retailers are doing is they're stocking 8.
Yeah,
we're doing that game again.
Yeah,
so it's like, oh, come on.
But the thing is, the Retron gaming systems already play the NES and Super Nintendo games. See, the NES, for those of you who don't know, they literally did recreate the NES. They just made it bite-sized.
Yeah.
And it comes preloaded with 30 games, and it's literally your classic NES with everything. And it sounds great, and it is. It's a lot of fun, and I think if you've never had an NES or you want to get it, then you should go for it. But there's this thing called... The thing is, the 30 games that are on it are all you can play. That's it.
Yeah.
Those are the 30 games you're going to have with that thing.
Here's the funny thing. Ironically, if there's anybody older in the audience and you haven't cleaned your house out in a while, if you just go upstairs to your attic or way down to your basement, you might find one of these sitting back there.
You should play it.
Seriously.
Treat it with love. It's great.
See if it works. Dump it on eBay. You can pay your house off, okay?
But the thing is, the Retron gaming systems, which will play, you can find some that will play NES, Super Nintendo, and Sega all in one system. Yeah. Those are only like $140. And they can play every Super Nintendo and NES game ever made.
Yeah, and $140 is nothing today.
$140.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got mine, which plays NES Super Nintendo games for $60.
Yeah.
And it plays every Super Nintendo game, every NES game, and I can just go to my local game store and pick it up.
What's the big deal?
The big deal is it's nostalgia.
Yeah.
Mine doesn't look like the NES. It looks like a block.
It's also bragging rights too.
Yeah, you have
one of the guys that we know put it on his. And I'm not beating you up. You know who you are, Justin. And he put a picture up, and he's like, "Look what I got!" And the whole group is having a fit because they can't touch it, and he's sitting on it and just having a field.
Yeah,
showing everybody.
It is. There's a bit of nostalgia and bragging rights with it, but
I was laughing. I was like, "Oh, someone's just been uninvited to a bunch of parties."
The upside is when you get the NES, it comes with the 30 games. My way, I can play every game, but I have to literally hunt them down at used game stores and pay for them.
Yep.
So, and some of those games, like Turtles in Time, I really want it. $50 for a Super Nintendo cartridge.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe I'll get it, maybe I won't. But so, I mean, there's that. But I personally like the Retron systems because I can play whatever I want, whenever I want, and I'm not locked into having only 30 games.
Yeah.
But I do get it. Like, if I received it as like a gift or something, I wouldn't be like, oh, the mini NES, I'm never going to use this.
No, we're not beating it up. I mean, it's fun, but it's just, kind of like...
It's like, okay.
It depends on how bad are you happy with it.
But here's the thing.
Games?
Now that Nintendo did this, they can do the same thing with the Super Nintendo now. And then they could do it with the N64, and you're like... So I think this was kind of a proof of concept thing, and now Nintendo's going to... But I think it's cool, and I like I said, it's not something I'm against, but I don't really understand all of the hype.
Like, I go back to I'm dating myself here, running out to get the Star Wars figures when they dropped, like, one Jawa on the city, and you were like, oh my god, I gotta have it. And you went to all the department stores, and you made friends with all the clerks there, and as soon as the Jawa came, they would call you, or you would be calling every day, and they would hold it for you, and you would race in the car down to get it, because there was no other Jawa. And I kind of dig that. You got the bragging rights. I got the Jawa, and you got on your phone, and you called all your friends, and they were like, oh my god, he's got the Jawa, you're the greatest geek of all. And so you had your geek cred and your nerd cred went through the roof for about a week. So this might be what's going on here, but it's kind of a pain in the neck when they drop these right before Christmas, and you're trying so hard. It's the Cabbage Patch Kid of the day.
Well, I have that now because I go to play the game to get my comics and stuff, and I show up last week to get my comics, and I'm wandering around seeing if there's anything around the store, and I know one of the guys there pretty well, and I'm wandering around looking at the comics, and he goes, hey, I got something you might like. And I come around the corner, and they've got the Power Rangers 6-inch Legacy figures.
That's just what you need.
For like $5 cheaper than you can find them anywhere else. And they had the Green Ranger, my namesake, Tommy. Yep. And so I was like, give me one of those. And they only had two. And so I snagged one of them. And he goes, I love Power Rangers, so I ordered a crate of them, he said. And he goes, the boss ordered 2 more. And we were like, we sold out of them in like an hour.
Yeah.
He goes,
these
are our last 2 for the shipment. And I was like, fine.
So hot. And just a quick side note on that. You said you were trying to find these places that have these, these cool figures. I believe, is Target not starting to get a little, like, they're starting to bring in some cool figures?
Target's got, like, well, here's the funny thing.
Online more
online, sure, but in the store, they do have, like, the Star Wars, the Black Series, and the Power Rangers Legacy stuff.
A couple podcasts ago, right?
Where if you find Target on their restock day, they are a trove of stuff you want. Yeah. Like, I walked in there one time not expecting to find anything.
Yeah.
And I always did this to myself. I don't know why. I would always go through the Black Series stuff, and they like have Stormtrooper and like Rebel Guard, and you're like, okay, like I don't know. And then one day I'm walking through, and I'm like, Rebel Guard, Stormtrooper, Rebel Guard, Stormtrooper, Boba Fett, top right. And I freaked out. If there had been a little kid going for that figure, I would have kicked him in the head out of the way, because Boba Fett online was going for like $50 or $60. Yeah. So I snagged that Boba Fett. And every now and again, I'll go down. Like, I went down one time, and they had Jango Fett. And I was, and I snagged Jango Fett. And
here's the worst part, folks. We don't want to, without giving too much away, we got a Target in our backyard. So it's disgustingly close to our walls. It's killing us. So, and Target now has gotten pretty good with their stock. That's all. I'm laughing because Tom goes down there on a pilgrimage to see if he can find any treats.
I just found Luke from A New Hope. Yeah.
Do you want to tell anybody what you found with the, we'll talk about that later.
We'll get to that later. Let me see if I got anything else.
Sorry, guys. We got so much news here. We've been away about
Actually, that pretty much does it for me.
What?
I forgot.
Go ahead.
I have a board game.
Yes.
Collect card game thing. Boss Monster. If you've never heard of it, it's inspired by old Nintendo and Super Nintendo, 16-bit games. The basic premise is you play as the final boss of a dungeon in a game. And your goal is to attract heroes to your dungeon and kill them to collect their souls and to become the best boss monster in the land.
Awesome.
It's 2 to 4 players default. There are expansions that make it 5 to 6. Basically, you build up to 5 rooms. Each room does damage or some other effect to the heroes or whatever. And if you take a certain number of damage through heroes getting through, you lose the game. But it's really cool. You could totally tell some things are inspired from what certain games are. There's one boss that you can play as called Father Brain. Mm-hmm. So any Metroid fan will know what that's a reference to. And it's just this really fun game. It's a quick game. Once you get the hang of it, you can probably finish the game in about a half hour, 45 minutes. But there's a lot of bosses you can play as, so it never feels stale. There's a bunch of different rooms and spells, and there's 3 expansions that I know of, so that there's a lot of stuff to go with. And my buddy Scott has been getting me into this, and I think the next one we're going to try is Castle Panic.
Awesome.
But I might actually go pick up Boss Monster for myself because it's pretty cheap and it's a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. And I'll have another board game for you next week. I promise. I've been very bad. And do you want to go into the what do you got? If you got anything next, do you want to go straight into the cons?
Straight into the cons.
Okay. We'll start with let's do the one we did here.
I went to the first ever Syracuse Comic Con up at the OCC SRC Arena.
OCC is Onondaga Community College.
Yes.
Here, so.
They did a con a couple months ago, but that was just more of a smaller kind of thing. This was the first Syracuse Comic Con. So this is our first shot at it.
Put on by Syracuse
Nerd. It was. They had a lot of floor space to cover in the arena, and most of it was covered to their credit. There was a lot of vendors. Yeah. They had the DeLorean from Back to the Future. It was a lot of fun. The vendors were really cool. They had a lot of good stuff. Little disappointed there wasn't as many people in costume as I thought, but I did catch the costumes. I did catch were really good. My favorite still is Oscar the Grouch.
Yeah,
the guy was carrying around a trash can with Oscar out of it, and it was great.
We've got the picture online. So
there's a Dr. Zoidberg that was a lot of fun, and I missed him, and I was so mad. But there was a guy. There was two guys who went as a Wampa.
Oh, awesome.
The thing from Star Wars that Luke messed up Luke's face in Empire, and they literally one dad sat on the other guy's shoulders. And they were the big Wampa, and I missed them because they had their costume in the corner, and I was like, ah! But it was a lot of fun, and I went. One guy I met was Bill Anderson, and Bill Anderson, for those of you who don't know, used to do cover art for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles back in the '90s, back when they were still Mirage Comics, way back in the day. And we talked a little bit, and I went through some of his prints. I picked up a print and one of his comic issues. He signed both of them for me. And I was looking through his prints, and I don't know if he'll ever listen to this, but I have to say this. Okay. I was looking at one of his prints, and it reminded me of something, and I told him it reminded me of something. It was a movie, and I couldn't think of the name, and I told him, I swear to God, I'm going to get home, and I'm going to think about it the second I get home. And I did. The print it reminded me of was, I don't know if anyone's ever seen Warriors of Virtue. It's like this old 90s, maybe even 80s movie. And it's like these four warrior brothers, and this kid gets sucked into another world, and awesome. That's what the print reminded me of. And I'm sorry, Bill, I couldn't think of the name right there at the time. Really nice guy. We talked a little bit about him working on TMNT and what that print was actually made for. Yeah. And very nice guy, very pleasant, signed my prints, and I got a picture of him up for the site. I sent it to you.
You got a lot of pictures of him.
And it was nice. It was a little small, but again, this was their first year.
And it was put together quick, in about 3 months.
Quick. So I think for A, the timetable they had, and B, this being the first ever proof of concept kind of year, this was very good. And if they do it again next year, I will definitely be going back.
Yeah, and again, the small size it's not small. It was in a pretty big auditorium.
Yeah, it was huge, a huge place.
It was nice. You could walk around. And you had a lot of room to move.
They had a bouncy castle and everything. Yeah. It was just ridiculous. And,
who doesn't go to a bouncy castle?
The crown jewel I found there, though, I'm walking by all the toy aisles. You know, I pulled out some money to get some stuff at the con. I'd gotten the prints already. And I'm wandering around, and I passed this toy booth. And I stop. And I turn around, and I look at the guy who's operating the booth. And I go, is that a Conan the Barbarian toy set? And he goes, it is. And I'm like looking at this thing, and it's Conan leaping up in the air with an axe in one hand, a sword in the other, and a giant ape. And anybody who's read Conan knows apes were a recurring thing in Robert E. Howard's work.
And I'm like the biggest Conan fan in the world.
It's great. So I stare at it, and I'm like, how much is it? And I'm like mentally preparing myself.
Money's no object.
I was mentally preparing myself for him to be like $60. And I was like, he goes $30. And I'm like, I'll take
$30 for that?
Yeah, that is fantastic for that.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's like, I'll do the set for $30, and I'm like, take my money.
It's a big toy, too.
It's a big night, and the ape is huge.
Yeah,
it's a great big figure. And it's got a floor set, and Conan's literally held up in the air by a stand, leaping at this thing. And so I got it, I put it in my bag, and I gleefully wandered around the con for the rest of the day with knowing that I'm going to set this up on my shelf when I got home.
Too funny.
So that was my big happy moment from the con.
So the con was good. It was, and it's great to see. If you get a chance, go over to Syracuse Nerd's site, Syracuse Nerd. You just we'll have a link to them.
You can see my selfie with the Deadpool with the Syracuse Nerd.
Yeah, we got a few pictures there, and they did a great job with this con, and I expect to see it get bigger and bigger to the point where there's a lot of room for growth in there, and he could put.
That's the thing. Like I said, they covered a lot of the floor space, but there was definitely room for growth. So if they wanted to expand next year, which hopefully they'll be able to because they'll have more time, obviously, if they want to make this a yearly thing. I think they can fill it in.
Now, he might have been up against. Here's what I went to. We all split up and went to cons this weekend, and we had him booked, and Tom and his crew went up to Syracuse, the Syracuse Comic Con, and we went out. Some others of us went out to Rhode Island for the great big con there. Now, the Syracuse Comic Con might have been affected a little bit by that. I don't know how much though. But again, last thing, looking forward to the Comic Con next year. So we'll be hopefully reporting on that in about a year from now with some double the size, double the fun. And anyway, we went over to the Rhode Island Comic Con, and wow, it was my first major con. And by major, I mean like, wow, deep end of the pool major.
You said 30,000, right?
That was Saturday.
Oh, wow.
Saturday, 30 or 32,000 alone in the Dunkin' Donuts Center, and there was an arena,
Donuts.
and the arena was jammed, and then there was this like a convention center next door up a bridge, and it just absolutely packed, mobbed. And of course, they had the names. I mean, they had massive names in this thing. They had the number one being Stan Lee, who some guy we met. He loves some comics. I don't know. Anyway, I gave him a couple stickers, and now he's like really popular. He's like over. No, in all seriousness, I went crazy, and I bought the big ticket, and I met Stan Lee, so I'm very excited. I got my photo with Stan, and there were 3,200 of us in line for that one. That was a massive thing. God, we were in line for hours for that. That was great, but it was worth every penny. I gotta say, the one thing there's so much I want to talk about with this con. I don't want to overwhelm the podcast on just this con, but it was a major deal. And first of all, I didn't even know this con existed until Rusty Gilligan. Rusty Gilligan's an illustrator who has a Mac and Trouble comic. And Rusty, I ran into him at another con. I think it was up in Rochester or something. I don't know where we were. And he said, you got to go to this Rhode Island thing. And I said, I've never even heard of this. And it was very poorly promoted outside of Providence, because I talked to some other people who this was their first time. They hadn't heard of it. And yet it was mobbed. And it looks like it's rapidly turning into
one of the big ones.
Yeah, it's going to be like the mini San Diego of the East Coast. And it's going to hold its own against New York.
Yeah.
And it's that big. And it's just incredible, because it's 30,000 just on Saturday. They were sold out. It's Saturday, and don't even get me started on the parking. I don't want to talk about that. So hopefully they'll do a little better. That was my only complaint about the con. Well, no, there was a couple complaints. I'm going to start with the complaints. Number one, the food and the beer was outrageous. $8 cans of beer, $4 cans of soda. Parking was out of sight. I don't even want to tell you what I paid for parking, because people just write me and yell at me. But and it was just chaos with the parking. But other than that, it was excellent. There were Friday, Saturday, Sunday, thousands and thousands of people, all jammed together, nerds and geeks, cosplay like you can't even begin to imagine. Stuff I saw. I went to the cosplay contest. We got pictures all over the site. I'm not even going to try to describe. Just take a look at the pictures. The cosplay was the best cosplay you'll see in the country, outside of San Diego and New York. And a few small cons. You'll see some really good ones there too. But everybody was very professional and very adult. There were times when we were just mashed into hallways and rooms and stuff, and there was just no trouble. Everybody got along. People were really friendly. I made a ton of friends. It was just a really good time. It was really nice to see just how well the thing went over. I met Stan Lee, but by meet, I mean, it was a quick meet and greet. Bang, in, out, done. Photo, autograph. The big deal for me was we went through a line and we did the picture. And that was super fast. And you got the picture, bang, out you went, because they didn't have a picture ready yet. So you went back into a line, and you came back through for the autograph. And we went back around for the autograph. And okay, now they had the picture. And then they kind of just threw the pictures out there. Everybody's like, they're all climbing over each other trying to get their pictures. So I was one of the last people to get my picture. I was just way in the back of the line. I didn't care. I had all night. And I got my picture. I'm kind of walking around, and everybody's clearing out. And I went out into the hall, and now the con itself was now pretty much closed, and everybody's starting to drift out Friday night. And I had a little tag. Long story short, I had something that I thought I had forgotten to pick up back in the room. And I thought, well, I'll take a chance to see if I can get back in the room. And I went walking back in, and as I walk into the room, it's myself and you'll see this, it's on video, less than 100 people in the room. And I think, and I walk in, and Stan Lee is still in there, and he was talking about something, and I didn't know this was going on. And all of a sudden, everything gets really quiet. The door's shut behind me, and all these military guys start coming out. And I'm like, what's going on here? And what it was the most amazing thing, and I got it on video. It's a little grainy, and I was far back, and I gradually move up, and you're trying not to make too much noise, because it's a big deal. The military presented Stan Lee. They had all the branches in the military, a bunch of different branches. And they came out and gave military honors for Veterans Day, because if you know Stan Lee, he was an ex-vet, and it was very emotional, very, very just amazing. And so we got it on film. I had my little iPhone there, and people were, you can see other people in the crowd. There were a few stragglers in the room still. It was the most amazing thing to see. And here's, 93, 94-year-old man,
Yep.
and he's cracking jokes with him. And then they do the salute, and it's like, oh my God, you're just ready to die watching. He's still got it. They all salute at the same time. Like, whoa. And it was really, really cool. It was just a really, amazing thing just to happen to walk in the room and catch that. So I can't rave enough about that. It's to actually see Stan Lee and meet Stan Lee, and so it got my picture, and I saw the military honors, and it's just an amazing thing. So that was just the Stan Lee portion of the con, which in the number, Gal Gadot was there.
Trevor Dean Morgan.
Yeah, the Negan was there. I just can't even think of the number. Laurel from
Tommy,
Arrow.
the Green Power Ranger, was there.
Yeah, the Green Power Ranger was there. I mean, there were dozens of celebrities just all over the. Terminator was in there. Summer Glau, who I'm just kicking myself. I could not get to Summer
really?
Glau. Yeah, she was there. And I couldn't get to her. I was trapped in some giant
Who else
room.
did you meet?
I happened at one point. This was really cool. I happened to be walking by a table, and I was like, I got to get out in the hall. I'm dying. It's so packed in here. I loved it. I'm not complaining. It was just a lot of people, and I hadn't eaten all day. And I was like, okay, Saturday. I'm walking around. Finally, I'm about to go out. I look over, and there's a table with these 4 guys. And I look at the banner. It's R.A. Salvatore. Like, oh my God, I love R.A. Salvatore, his work. Bob Salvatore was, if you ever read the, some of the Dungeons and Dragons book, the Forgotten Realms and all that stuff, I hope I'm saying that right, the Dark Elf series. And it's a lot of books. And they're all amazing books. And I lived on these in the 90s, and they were so good, and they were very, very big books. I'd love to see them do a film on this stuff. I don't know if it would take but they could do it. I'd like to see them do a film. And I just turned around. There's Bob Salvatore. Like, wow. So I got to meet him and talk to him for a minute. And some other guys with him. Some very nice gentlemen. And we got pictures. We got pictures of that. And but the con was just amazing. And what did we get? 13th Floor? The pictures we brought back?
Those were awesome.
We brought back some pictures for people from this company called 13th Floor Productions, I believe. Correct me if I apologize. We'll have a link to it. And they've got some really cool mashups where they take Star Wars art and they put it into old-time photos from World War II. So you've got these GIs standing around smoking cigarettes around a downed TIE fighter and stuff like that. Really cool. And so we got some posters of that. They're really neat, and we'll have the link up. Anyway, long story short, if you ever want to go to a big con, and you really want to, one of the nearby ones, if you're in the Northeast, check out the Rhode Island Comic Con next time it comes through. Really incredible con. And I don't know what they're going to do next year. They're even bigger. So that was the Rhode Island Comic Con. I don't want to talk too much. Go online to Sci-Clops.com or the Sci-Clops Facebook page. We've got tons of pictures, and they're different. Some are a little overlap, but we got a lot of different pictures between the website and the Facebook page. So a lot of stuff to see there. Very cool. And that's pretty much it for me. I don't want to go too much into the con all day. I could talk about it for hours, and so I just want to let you know it's a great con, worth every penny. Even though it's going to be that. It's going to be a lot of people. It's going to be a little chaos on parking, but worth every penny if you really want to see everybody coming into an area, in the Northeast. And are you all set? You got anything else up?
I've gotten all
I guess with that, we'll
in.
wrap it up. Anything we missed, we'll be back in a few days with another podcast, and we'll cover that. But we really enjoy the support, and we hope you'll keep visiting. We are on Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We do have the website, and please come by and support us and click on the site. We are always trying to update stuff to keep current. If there's anything you want to see, please let us know. And if you're at the site, just click on some of the ads. It helps us. It's a penny or two. It's really not much. It's peanuts, but it helps us a little bit because it lets them know we're relevant and that we're there. And then the ads keep coming. So it's a very simple thing you can do. It's free, and we really do appreciate the support. And that's it for now. We'll see you very soon. We'll see you in about a week. And in the meantime, keep the geek.
Keep the geek.